In this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive and breaking down the Brotherhood of Mutants. Hey guys, Rich from Rich Big Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Welcome to this, another MCP video and the latest in our series where we're going to be breaking down each and every affiliation in the game alphabetically, so it does keep me on track and make sure that I do go through them all. And as you know from the title of the video, we are on to Brotherhood of Mutants. Now, I have a long-standing relationship with the Brotherhood of Mutants. I used to play them a lot. This is the first affiliation that I ever went to an event with, and it's also the first affiliation I ever won an in-person event with as well. I used to absolutely love playing Brotherhood of Mutants. Now, this is before the days of where we had a lot of the shenanigans that we have now. There weren't really any safe midline, extract grabbers and things like that. And it's fair to say that the game has most definitely moved on a little bit from Brotherhood of Mutants. In terms of where they are right now, they do have some characters, I think, that are crying out for a little bit of an update and a rework, just to bring them in line with, some of the advances in what other characters can do, at the same threat levels and what they bring. So let's jump over and let's start by taking a look at the two leaders of Brotherhood of Mutants. And let's start with Max Eisenhart, as he's called in this game. I know him more as Eric, but Max Eisenhart, aka Magneto. Now, a couple of things to point out about Magneto. First of all, he is a 6-threat leader. That does mean it's a little bit difficult to fit other characters in and around. Although 15 threat has now gone, so it does make it that little bit easier as well. I think he's got a really, really good builder. It's been a while since we've broken down Magneto, so let's take a quick look at some little bits of what he does. But reverse polarity, range 3, strength 6, power equal to damage dealt, and it's going to do one of two things. If the target character is within range 2, he can reroll any number of his attack dice. If they're outside of range 2, he's going to be able to push the target short. Now, that push is going to be omnidirectional, so you can either push them off a point, or you can bring them closer towards you, so then your second attack, you're going to get all of those rerolls on there. So I think that's a really, really nice builder. Shrapnel Blast is not a great spender. It's really not. It's one of the parts of Magneto that I think is a little bit weak. But then he's got a couple of other things that he's got going on as well. He was the first character in the game that brought something extra with him. And what he brings are metal constructs. So at the start of the game, he gets to put one of these out. And then during the power phase, if there is less than 2, so one or fewer out on the board, he gets to put another construct out. And what are they going to do? Well, they're going to generate additional power for him. So if he's got 2 constructs out, he's going to be generating 3 power per turn, but he's guaranteed to be getting 2 power. Now, why is he guaranteed to get 2 power? Well, unless he's poisoned, actually, but the actual constructs are a separate source of power generation, meaning that even if he's stunned, he'll get 1 from his natural 1 in the power phase, and then 1 from a construct. If he's got 2 constructs, that will be reduced down to 1. Now, why are these constructs so good? Well, first of all, they do let Magneto generate more power. That's really nice. They are also things that are spawned each and every turn that are other terrain pieces that Magneto can throw. and we'll get into a little bit of that in a moment. They also can be used very, very strategically. So he can place them within range 3 of himself. And one of the biggest problems that Magneto has is displacement, because he's only got a short move and there's no other way of being able to move him around. Even though he has flight, he moves very slowly, apparently. Again, another one of Magneto's issues. So you can use these constructs to do a number of different things. Now, they're always going to be within range 3, which means that the one that you put down this turn is going to be in range for him for his fatal attraction, which is his throw. And again, we'll get into that in a moment. But you can use them to do a couple of things. First of all, you can use them to backstop Magneto. What do we mean by backstopping? Well, what we mean by backstopping is if we've got our base, you imagine here, we put something directly behind it. And then basically because of the curvature of the bases and the way that pushers work in this game, or at least pushers away work, it means that Magneto can't be pushed backwards. All that would happen is he would bump straight into that terrain piece. And because it's a push, not a throw, he's just going to stay there. And the terrain piece is going to stay intact because he's a size 2 and the terrain piece is a size 2. You can also use them to quote unquote zone control. So you can use them to put around objectives, making it more difficult or sometimes impossible for your opponent to be able to get onto a point without displacing somebody else or getting rid of the terrain in the first place. So fatal attraction, this is Magneto's big thing. It's where a lot of his damage comes from. So it's a cost X, and it's this character may spend 1 to 4 power when paying the cost of this superpower. So basically what you do is you choose an interactive terrain feature within range 3, and if it was a size 2, you would pay 2 power and you get to throw it long. So long throw, and that is going to be from all the way from size 1 up to size 4. So first of all, Magneto has the best throw in the game, right? The best terrain throw in the game. There's no other, nobody else does it better than Magneto. Now, with most terrain throws, what you're going to see, I think almost exclusively all of the terrain throws, what you're going to see is this superpower can only be used once per turn. However, Magneto can use this as many times as he wants, but there is a little tax. So let's say that the first thing that you throw is one of your size 2 constructs. So that will cost you 2 power. And then you decide, well, actually, I'm going to throw a size 3 building that I've got close to me as well. So that 3 building is going to cost you the 3, so that because it's size 3, but the cost of this superpower goes up by 1 every single turn. So the first time you use it, you're just paying for the cost of the size of the building. The second time, it's the cost of the size of the building plus 1. Third time, cost of the size of the building plus 3. So on and so forth. So if Magneto is maxed out at 10 power and he starts throwing, a few different terrain pieces around, and then he uses reverse polarity to generate some additional power, then he's going to be able to keep doing this until he runs out of power, or indeed you run out of terrain. You will find that a Magneto board very, very quickly runs out of terrain. So let's take a look then at his leadership. It is called From the Ruins. When a terrain feature is destroyed, after the effect is resolved, choose a number of allied characters equal to or less than the terrain feature size. Each chosen character gains 1 power. A character may only gain 1 power as a result of this leadership ability per turn. So not only is he able to keep throwing these terrain pieces, he's generating power for his other team members as well, or indeed they're generating power for him. So you destroy a size 4 terrain piece with Magneto, up to 4 people or four characters in your squad can all gain a power. Now, if Magneto then destroys another building, if you were 6 wide, you might struggle, but if you were 6 wide, those other 2 people could gain a power. But because they've Everybody else has already got one. They don't get to get it again. But notice it says per turn, and it doesn't stipulate when when a allied character destroys a terrain piece. So this will work on your opponent's turn as well. So if they are going to start picking up terrain pieces and throwing them at you, you're at least going to have some level of benefit from it. So leadership is really all around power generation. So because of that, you want to try and take some additional characters who are going to feed into that and can start building up. I've had it before where I've had Scarlet Witch being able to do her spender turn one, right? It can get absolutely crazy. He's also got some force projection, so 336 as a stat line isn't great, but when he's targeted with an attack or he needs to make a dodge roll, he can spend 2 power. If he does, he gets to use his Mystic, and then he cannot be pushed or thrown as part of the special rules of this attack or collision. So really, really nice reactive ability that he's got there. You want to make sure that you always have 2 power on Magneto, right? That is something that you want to make sure you've got on there. He does bring a couple of tactics cards. First of all, we've got Magnetic Crush. This isn't great. I wouldn't take it. Let's move on. But the one that is really good is Magnetic Refraction. He spends 2 power, and everyone within range 3 of him gains cover for the rest of the round. Now, he doesn't need to use this during his activation, so it's just something that you can do at the beginning of the turn. It will also work if Magneto is dazed, but the real kicker on this is if you're using Brotherhood of Mutants, this card gets recycled. So you get to use it time and time again. Now, what's different with this cover versus cover from terrain, for example, is this isn't mitigated by the range 2 rule. The range 2 rule of if you're in range 2 of somebody, they don't get cover from terrain, only works on terrain. This mitigates it completely. So not only with Magneto, if you're playing him right, you're always going to be in a position where you've got 2 power to spend to give you 6 defense, should you wish. You're also going to be in a position where one of those dice is going to be automatically converted into a success, as long as there's not somebody that can't, that doesn't mitigate cover or something like that, or stops you from modifying, because it is still a dice modification. But if you are playing Magneto, this card is stapled to him. Okay, let's take a look then at the other leader for Brotherhood of Mutants. That's going to be Mystique, aka Raven Darko. Now, we've gone from one extreme of a 6 threat all the way down to the other extreme of a 3 threat. She's got a rapid fire pistol. She's got an espionage that does dish out stun before damage is dealt, so that can be quite nice. She can blow up buildings, but it does cost an action. She's got martial artist. She's got stealth. And she also has something called Shapeshifter. During this character's activation, enemy characters cannot use reactive superpowers or reactive team tactics cards. This leads for some really nice scenarios where you can happily attack a Dracula with Mystique on her turn, knowing that Dracula isn't going to be able to clap you back. We're going to get to some other examples of other characters that can do things out of their activation when it's Mystique's turn, so that it means they can't use those reactive abilities. Now, not long ago, Mystique was absolutely everywhere, not even necessarily played as a leader. But let's get onto her leadership. Freedom Force. Once per turn, when an allied character interacts with an extract objective token, after all effects are resolved, the allied character gains 1 power. And then additionally, allied characters may use the following ability. But let's cover that first part off first. So basically, they're going to get a refund. The first time an allied character each turn interacts with an extract objective token, once everything's done, right? So if it's going to do damage to you, or if it's going to push you or something like that, that happens first, and then you're going to gain a power. So you need the power up front, but you get it as a refund. Secondly, then we've got the interact secure objective token. Place a token on this objective token. While this token is in play, you are securing the objective. Remove the token if an enemy character contests the objective token. You may only have one token in play at a time as a result of this leadership ability. So how does this work? Where is it good? But you imagine something like a D map where your home point, if you like, is so far away from your opponent, at least in the early stages of the game. Now, it isn't interact, so it will cost 1 power, but anyone in your team can put down a token. You can only have 1 token in play, but essentially you can move away from that back point and still score it. That token there is still going to score you that extra VP. Now, it works really effectively in the early part of the game. It can also work very effectively in the latter parts of the game as well, especially if you have got you're down to only a handful of characters or less than a handful of characters and points. You're doing your calculations, right? If I move here and I contest this and I'm going there, but actually I want to be able to go pick up these 2 things. But if I pick up these 2 things, I'm leaving that point, which means that I'm only scoring 2 and I need 3. So it can really, really come in clutch towards the latter part of a game as well. It's a really nice leadership. I actually think it's a reasonably strong leadership as well, especially on a 3-threat character. And I think Mystique as a character is absolutely perfectly fine. I don't think she needs really anything too much changing about her. Now, one big thing that did change, as I mentioned earlier, Mystique used to be everywhere. And she was everywhere for 2 things. She was everywhere because of Shapeshifter, and she was everywhere because of a tactics card. Now, that tactics card has been changed. So she now does have access to a card called Stolen Identity. Mystique may play this card. Choose an enemy character without an activated token within 4 of this character. If there are no other non-dazed enemy characters within 2 of the chosen character, you may advance the chosen character its speed towards this character. Really interesting. Now, you may look at that and think, well, there's not much difference between that and what we had before, which was deception. Deception is identical in the wording apart from one thing: without an activated token. And that was the big change. So it meant that if somebody walked up to the midline to go pick something up, again, this is before the huge prevalence of midline extract plays. Mystique was one of the reasons why midline extract plays became a really big thing. Now Mystique has gone, and now Thanos has had a bit of a nerf in terms of what he can do. So they're far less relied upon in the game, because you know that you can safely walk to a midline for the most part and be okay. You might take a hit, but then you can activate that character first next turn and they can move back or whatever else. And your opponent could get lucky and spike and one-shot them and things. But yeah, deception going really, really hurt Mystique. I personally think the way they should have dealt with deception is not turn it into something new. I think they should have kept it. And I think they should have kept it, and it should have been a restricted Brotherhood of Mutants card. Maybe if she was your, only if she was your leader or something like that. And I think that would have stopped the widespread, but it would have also kept something for Brotherhood that was a little bit unique. But hey ho, there we go. But I do like Mystique. I think she's strong. She's strong even outside of her leadership. That Shapeshifter is really good. Long move, that rapid fire is really nice as well. And yeah, she can feed into Magneto's leadership if you are playing her underneath Magneto. Okay, let's move on to some tactics cards next. We've got Asteroid M and Books of Truth. Asteroid M, we spoke about this in the Black Order video. 2 characters spend 2 power each, and you get to teleport them between anywhere on the board within range 1 of the other players. But the character that is teleported can't be holding an objective token. This is essential for Brotherhood of Mutants, especially underneath Magneto, because he is not fast. You do not want to waste 2 actions getting Magneto to the midpoint. Remember, we're feeding power into him anyway, so you want to use one of those medium or long movers to get up the board and then have Magneto move up as well. Now, note, just like the Black Order version of the card, this can be done at any point. It doesn't need to be any of the characters that are moving activation. So the idea is you have somebody further up the board, and then when you're ready to unveil Magneto and get him into position, you can do so. Brooks of Truth, this is another one of these, modify dice, reroll everything, including failures. Like, it's fine. Like, it's absolutely fine. It's attacking, defending, but it'll only reroll your defense or all of your defense or all of your attack. It doesn't reroll your opponent's. I personally think Recal Matrix is just a little bit better overall, or at least gives you more flexibility. Now, don't get me wrong, in a situation where you've rolled, your opponent has rolled terribly with their defense and you've rolled terribly with your offense, then yeah, you might want to use this, but it is restricted to Brotherhood characters only. It costs the same as Recal. I would personally just rather take Recal. I think it gives you that little bit more flexibility. Let's talk about some characters, because you've got some good characters within Brotherhood of Mutants. Let's start out with Mortimer Toynbee, Toad. Toad's a great character. We know exactly what Toad does. He does bring a team-up card, and it's a team-up card within Affiliation, but it's not exclusive to Brotherhood. But it is going to be leapfrog with the Blob. After an allied Toad deals damage with an attack, an allied Blob and Toad may spend 1 power to play this card. The Blob may advance short and make a strike attack. So there's a couple of nice things about this. First of all, it only costs 1 power. That's really nice. Second of all, you don't pay for it before Toad makes the attack, and then you're reliant on Toad, doing damage. Toad only has a 4 dice and a 5 dice, 4 and 5 dice attacks. So if you get a lucky damage off with Toad, then this can be really nice, and it does a couple of things. First of all, gets Blob up the board potentially, and allows him to make a strike attack. That strike attack has a push on there. In fact, let's take a quick look at the Blob's card. So that strike attack has a push on there. Power equal to damage dealt. So if he does do a damage, chances are he's going to be able to get that power back. Blob for 4/2/2. That tickles, makes it so much better. Catch Little Man. So he does have a terrain throw. So again, we are feeding into the the Magneto side of things potentially. And the other thing is Blob cannot be pushed or thrown as a result of special attack rules. So nothing can move the Blob apart from things that can move him. Thunderous Splash is not to be underestimated. Before damage is dealt, place within 1, and then that explosive force is going to push other characters, so including your own, pushed away short, and then characters that are pushed suffer 1 damage. So, if it's a big clump of your opponents, great, but just be careful if you've got a couple of your own models in there as well. Let's have a look at some other 3 threats. We've got Gambit, Remy LeBeau. He comes with Dark Past and Charming Thief, 2 that he can use. Gambit isn't for me in Brotherhood of Mutants. You definitely have better options at 3 threat. He doesn't really play into the Magneto play style. Yes, he's got a card that can give everyone stealth, but yeah, it's an opportunity cost to take the card because you're not taking something else. He gets the Soul Gem for a round with Charming Thief, which again, fine. But yeah, not a fan of Gambit in Brotherhood of Mutants. A 3 threat that I do very much like though is Mr. St. John Bloody Allardyce, aka Pyro. Pyro for a 3 threat does a lot of work. 3/4/3 stat line. He is going to be dishing out Incinerate to everybody on the board, as long as they're not immune. He can also dish out root and slow for just 2 power, which again is really nice. He can add dice to his attack rolls, and then that fire manipulation, as I say, is just going to move it around, or move that incinerate and just set everybody on fire. I have, however, found, because of a certain tactics card in the form of Pyrotechnics, Pyro may spend X to play this card. For each power spent, choose an enemy character with the Incinerate special condition, and within 3, each chosen character drops 1 objective token it is holding and is pushed short away. So, on a clumped up scenario, Pyro can make big characters drop the things that they are holding. Also notice, it is not during his activation. So this is a very, very good tactics card with a very, very easy way of being able to get Incinerate out there. The problem is, I have found that playing Pyro with this card up there paints a huge target on his back, right? Paints a huge target on his back. And with only 3 physical and 3 mystic defense and literally no defensive capabilities and only 5 stamina, he is going to drop to a stiff breeze. So it's just something to be wary of with your positioning of Pyro, where you're putting him. You don't want him out on the front lines. You want to keep him back a little bit, within that range sort of 4 or 3, and you want to pick your moment when you want to use this card, and pick a character who you're going to be activating that can maximize that as well. Some of the 3 threats, we have got Son of Magneto, Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff. This guy's really quick, as you would imagine. He's got a builder that can go on forever, technically. Supersonic Strike, it's power equal to damage dealt. It's only 4 dice, range 3. But he's got some triggers. So on a crit and a block, he gets to make a dash or a short move. And then on a hit and a wild, he gets to make it again. Now that velocity can't target the original character. So you can't double tap the same character. But if there's somebody else within 3, you can attack them. And then if you get velocity again, you can go back and target the original character, because that's no longer the original character from the original one. It can go on forever. The problem is, it's only 4 dice, right? So don't get these delusions of grandeur that you're going to be able to do this time and time again. You are lucky if you get a trigger off. Cyclonic Vortex, it's fine. Cost 2, range 3, strength 6, gets to make a medium move afterwards. Perfectly fine. He does have Speedster. Costs 2, but he gets to make a long move. Now, he already is a long mover, but allowing a character to make a long move just for 2 power is pretty darn good, especially when you can feed that much power into him. Can Cash Me, when he's targeted by an attack, he can spend 3 and he can make a short move. If he would then be outside of range or line of sight of the attack ends, your opponent doesn't get to do it, and they either get their action back, or if it was like a beam attack or something, they just carry on with everything else. Supersonic Reflexes, he gets to reroll when defending against physical and energy, or dodge rolls, which is quite nice, but only 2, but even so. And Warcrawler as well. He does bring a card. Can I borrow that? It's fine. Basically, if he makes an attack and he damages someone, he can spend 2 power, and he gets to move 1 asset token from a target character to Quicksilver. It's not going to work on everything. It doesn't let you increase. So, if it's, Hammer's fine. He can be holding 2. But if it's, I'm trying to think of an asset. One of the new ones, right? The crystals or the canisters or something. It's not going to let him hold more than that. He does have another card as well. He's got a big team-up card with Dad and Sister. So we've got, Magneto and Scarlet Witch need to be involved in this one. Scarlet Witch we'll get onto in a little bit. Difficult to please. Basically, there's some Criteria you need to fill. Scarlet Witch needs to have dazed or KO'd an enemy character this round. And Quicksilver needs to have interacted with or picked up an objective token. Then, and only then, Magneto can play this card. You may remove an activated token from Magneto. I used to play this a lot. If I was building a Brotherhood roster, which I am doing right now, I wouldn't be playing this card. Couple of reasons. For all the great stuff that he's got, I don't think Quicksilver is good enough. I think there's better threat options in Brotherhood of Mutants. And also one activation extra for Magneto. Whilst it's okay, it does mean that this will often give priority to your opponent. Now, if you don't have priority either way, then perfectly fine. If you want to play thematic, take the three of them. Take difficult to please. I think that's fine. I used to play thematic a lot. I used to play these three with vision quite a lot. At, what's that, 11, 12, 13, 14. So at 18 threat. Maybe I need to look at my list and put this in here again. Like, it's fine. Like, but the opportunity cost and the fact that sometimes it's really easy to do, okay? The easiest part of this is Scarlet Witch dazing or KOing somebody, right? Because she's pretty good at that. The harder thing is Quicksilver interacting. Sometimes it's quite difficult to do. Not all secures can be interacted with. Not all, and objective tokens are not always available. So it can be a little bit harder to pull off, but maybe I reassess looking at my list, because I did used to have a lot of fun playing sort of a little mini game with myself in the game, trying to be able to do this. So maybe I look back at that and maybe I do change it. Okay, let's take a look at the 4 threats that we've got. We've got Colossus, we've got Emma Frost, we've got Rogue, we've got Sabretooth, and we've got Sabretooth Apex Predator. Like, all of these are fine. Like, fine. Colossus feeds into the Magneto thing. He also stops Magneto taking the hit, which can be nice. Rogue, again, she's got terrain throws. You've got things that you can turn on, turn 1 with Rogue underneath Magneto. Emma Frost, I'm not a fan of Emma Frost in this list. I don't think Emma is a great character anyway. And the big thing that she has is the fact that people can't use superpowers during her turn. Well, we already have that with Mystique. I love me some OG Sabretooth. Again, I may have to look at my list and reassess, because I did originally put Apex Predator in. I love OG Sabretooth. Now, Apex Predator is a better version of Sabretooth, right? So if you are building a list for yourself and you want to maximize it, I would go with Apex Predator. But I have a bit of an affinity for this version of Sabretooth. His single target damage is crazily good. He also has the long move, whereas this version of Apex is only a medium move. But this version of Apex can also pounce himself. But the other version of Sabretooth has the aggressive and has the untamed force, so he can clap you back as well. So it's a bit yin and yang. I just wish this version of Sabretooth, the original one, had the defensive stat line that Apex Predator did. And then I think he would be perfectly fine, perfectly viable. Okay, let's take a look at some 5 threats, because we do have a couple. First of all, we've got Juggernaut, Kane Marco, not a mutant. Technically not a mutant, but he is an honorary member of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Juggernaut's got has got a big job to do in Brotherhood. First of all, he is going to be, should we need it, our midline extract grabber. Should we need it? We don't always need one, right? Remember that now. We don't always need one. Juggernaut's great as an objective holder. 4-3-5 stat line means that he is going to be able to take a bit of a beating, especially with that 8 stamina, and the fact that he can reduce damage. He can spend power, reduce damage, but he can reduce it to 0. So he reduces it by 1, but he can reduce it down to 0. His helmet means he can't be moved by mystic or enemy superpowers. And he has this thing called unstoppable momentum, whereby he can he gets to do a couple of things. If he makes a move, he gains 2 power, and he adds 3 dice to his next attack, this activation. So his strike goes from being 5 dice up to 8 dice, which is pretty darn good. Nothing stops the Juggernaut. Basically, it's a short push, but he does not stop its movement if he contacts a size 3 or smaller interactive terrain feature. Instead, he destroys it. So again, feeding into that Magneto power thing, if he does this into a character, he's going to do 1 damage to them. So it's a guaranteed damage that comes through. But a character can only be affected by this once per turn, because he can use this as many times as he wants. He can get around the board. Now, the other thing on this is, if he has stagger, he can do this first, and it removes the stagger special condition. Which, again, if you're coming up against a list that has very, very easy access to dishing out stagger, making sure you keep 3 power on Kane at all time is really going to help. Also immunity to stun, which is quite nice. He's got a couple of tactics cards, making a Ruskus. Not a fan of this. It's reactive, basically. He gets to move and punch somebody, but it does cost 3 power. And the moves and things of this don't trigger the unstoppable momentum, because that's only during his activation. If this had synergy, it would be amazing, but it doesn't. So, in my opinion, it's just not worth a slot. And then we've got Do You Know Who I Am? Juggernaut may spend 3 power to play this card. Choose an interactive terrain feature or an enemy character, both of size 4 or less, within 2 of Juggernaut. Throw it long. Couple of things to note here. First of all, size 4 anything, throw it long. That's pretty darn good, especially for 3 power. Notice it doesn't say during his activation. So let's wrap our heads back to Mystique. So you activate Mystique, and then Juggernaut can do this. Why is it important? There's nothing your opponent can do to mitigate either the throw in the first place or the damage off the back end of it. Really, really powerful, really, really strong combination, especially if you've got, a Hulk on the ball that you can displace with a long move, or you've just got a character and your opponent is sat there with brace, and you can pick something up that's size 4 and yeet it at them during their turn. It can be really good. But for me personally, even just as a displacement and throwing somebody away, this is really, really strong. The other 5 threat is going to be Scarlet Witch. I love Scarlet Witch. Again, huge damage dealer, huge damage output. Her damage output is still very, very good, even with all of the changes that's happened, but she is lacking a little bit of something. So, I don't know what it is. That telekinesis is a little bit overcosted, maybe. Hexfield's fine, but some sort of place or movement on her would be really good. But even so, her damage output is incredible because of that Chosen of Chthon. So she adds failures when attacking, defending, or dodging. So she has what Cosmic Ghost Rider has just all of the time. And when you've got 6 dice builders that are range 4, where, by the way, she can dish out multiple conditions: bleed, hex, incinerate, and poison, or on her cruel twist, where your opponent doesn't add crit results into its defense roll and cannot add additional dice for crit results. So your opponent is good. If they're rolling 3 dice, that's all they're rolling, and you've got reality contortion on there as well, so it's basically a pierce but with a fail. 8 dice coming in is pretty brutal indeed. Do you just bring a couple of cards as well? No more mutants. This is going to work identical to Shush. So basically, somebody within 5, where they spend 1 or more power to use an active or reactive superpower. Scarlet Witch just goes, no thank you, and turns it off. Costs 3, and it's also considered them to have actually used it as well. So if it says once per turn, they don't get to do it again. It's fine. Like, if you're struggling for a 10th card, that's one that could definitely go in list if you are taking Scarlet Witch. But the one that is, in my opinion, staple to her, Whims of Chaos. Spend any number of power. Choose 1 non-dazed character within 3 for each power spent, including herself. And then you can remove 1 damage or 1 special condition. And then you can also choose enemy characters within 3, and you can give them Hex, Root, or Incinerate. So if you spend 6 power, you can target 3 of your own, 3 of your opponents, give Incinerate out, give Hex out, give Root out, 1 condition per enemy, or remove conditions and remove damage from your own team. Now you're probably thinking, Rich, you only said there were 2 5 threats, but there's another one. There is. It's Farouk. He's terrible. If you want a deeper breakdown of this guy, go and check out the Affiliation, the tier list video that we did for 5 threats. Even his astral plane doesn't save him. Like, it's really, really not good enough. He doesn't work as a character. Great idea, badly executed. He just does not work as a character. So unless you really want to take him, I wouldn't consider putting in Farouk in my, not even just Brotherhood of Mutants lists, into any list whatsoever. Cool. So with all that said and done, let's jump over and let's take a look at the roster that I've put together and go through and talk about some different threat levels, who we can take, and I may need to make some slight adjustments before we jump into it. Okay guys, so here is our roster of characters. We have brought both Magneto and Mystique. It gives us 2 options for leaderships depending on the map setup, depending on the threat value. I would say if you're going to play Magneto, Magneto needs to be your leader. Playing Mystique under Magneto is absolutely fine. The other way around just doesn't really work. We've got quite a lot of other Brotherhood characters with us here. So we've brought Juggernaut, we've brought Pyro, we've brought Rogue, we've got Sabretooth, we've got Scarlet Witch, we've got the Blob. We have brought Toad. Toad will be in every squad that you build. Like, Toad is just too good to not take. Then we've brought Vision. I like Vision for 2 reasons. First of all, he's got that beam attack. It brings some energy attacks, which we are a little bit lacking. We've got a few with Pyro, but a nice beam attack on there. He can also spend 2 and throw a terrain piece, size 3 or enemy character, which is absolutely crazy. So if we're in a position where it's like we've already got, we're going 4 wide under Magneto, and we've got a spot for Rogue, I feel like Vision is just a better version of Rogue. Because of that synthesis, he can start a chain reaction whereby he can generate 2 power, he can throw a piece of terrain into another piece of terrain, destroying both of them, and then generating an extra power for the entire team. So I do really, really like that. Let's have a look then at the crisis cards that we went with. Cosmic Invasion. First of all, let's take a look at Cosmic Invasion. It'd be 16 threat. So I think for Cosmic Invasion, the reason I've done this is twofold, really. First of all, we've got Juggernaut, who can be contesting that back point and potentially get some extra power turn 1, which is always nice. And the fact that it's a D-map, which a lot of people don't like. A lot of affiliations struggle with it, and under Mystique, we can leave that token on the back point without having to worry about things. We can just leave it there, and we can go and we can take and more heavily contest the two wide ones, potentially giving us that VP advantage during round one. And it also means that, you know, none of our characters are going to get pushed off that bat point because we're not going to have any characters on there. So, you know, at 16 threat, we've got really a core here. And again, with this one, it would very much depend whether or not you take Toad. I know that goes against what I said before, but whether you take Toad would very much depend on what the extract play was. But with both of these guys, you've got, you know, Juggernaut and Toad who can happily contest two ends of the board if there is a couple of midline extracts up for grabs. And then from here, you know, we can build it out with a couple of 3 threats. So, you know, we could take along with us Blob and Pyro. Now, you could also swap out Vision, for example, and go with another 6 cost big hitter. You could put a Gladiator in here. He's going to work absolutely fine. He likes the power from Magneto. You know, Mystique doesn't do a huge amount for him, but he's just really, really good. I just got a little bit bored taking all of the same characters all of the time. But, you know, it could look something, you know, like this. We've got the synergy then between Toad and Blob as well. We've got Pyro's card. And 5 wide at 16 threat with a big carrier who can, you know, really take a punch is pretty darn good. We're going to be able to overwhelm our opponent on those flanks, leave a token on the backspace, with a view that we're going to be able to get that VP lead and hopefully then maintain that and cause our opponent to try and chase us. Deadly Meteors. This is going to be 17 threat. This is going to be a very attrition-focused list for us. We've got a point in the middle, which is nice. We know people can get there nice and easily. We can also get to the one that's closer to our board edge with some of our long move characters, which again is quite nice as well. We can use Asteroid M to move people up. 17 threat, I'm looking at something like this. Let me check. Yes, that is 17 threat. Again, depending on terrain setup, depending on map layout, this is quite nice for a beam attack from Vision to be able to you know, hit more and more people, generate more power, you know, be able to do the things that he wants to do. What else have we got? Mutant Madmen. So I took Mutant Madmen because it is a pay. Sorry, and on this one as well, this is also a pay to flip. So under Mystique, if we did go down the Mystique route, so under Mystique, for example, we could do something along these lines. So we've got our 10 threat here. And then we could go with a Sabertooth and a Pyro, for example. Because we get that power back, it just means that we're going to have much better power economy than our opponent in both ways, really. Under Magneto, we're going to have it because we're getting extra. Under Mystique, we're going to have it because we're getting it back. So that is an option as well. And similarly with Mutant Madmen, you know, you've got this ability to be able to flip these traps. We've got nice physical defense on some of these characters. So, you know, you look at Sabertooth, you look at Rogue, you look at Juggernaut, all really, really poised to be able to do well. So that they're not going to get that move off the back end of it. Sorry, not get the move, but if they're going to get the 4 dice to be able to flip them. Extracts then, scientific samples. I think in most cases we want to try and max out and score VPs with Mystique as quickly as possible. And I think this lends itself really nicely to that. So it's going to allow us to score. We're going to be going wider than most. Again, if we go back and look, I mean, this is 17 threat right here. So let's just keep this on the board. But we're going to be going 5 wide at 17. A lot of other people are going to be going 4 wide. It allows us to not swarm, but contest points turn 1. And we're going to be able to hopefully have as many people on as possible within range 2 of those points, scoring as that extra VP if they are holding something. Sugar for the cube. Kane's a great cube holder. He is a great cube holder because he can reduce the damage that he would take by 1, because that does work on these as well. this is nice because if we are in a position where our opponent does happen to drop a lot of things, looking at Pyro, then Kane can go around and pick all of them up. You can get him way out of trouble. You can move him into the corner of the board very easily. And he's going to be in a position where he can carry all 5. He's going to take a lot of damage for it, but you know, scoring 5 points, if you're in a game where you're scoring all 5, you've probably won the game at that point. So Juggernaut being dazed really doesn't matter. And then lastly, unexpected guest. You're going to see me including this a lot in my lists, purely because I think it's a really good attrition-based list, but also because it's one of the very few, if not the only one, that doesn't dictate a midline extract, that doesn't have a huge number of scoring opportunities on there. So I do quite like this, and it also forces people to play the game rather than just ring away into the corner. I know I just said that about Kane, but you're not going to be doing that until later in the game anyway. Let's have a look at tactics cards. Asteroid M, we've got in there. Brace, we really need to take. We've got some big characters. You know, if somebody starts to throw a Juggernaut around on the board, we want to be able to make sure that we can brace that if we need it. Leapfrogs, we have brought that team up card. It's not the best, but, you know, it's absolutely fine. Magneto Refraction, as I say, staple to Magneto. We've got Patch Up, we've got Pyrotechnics. We did go with Recal, we spoke about that. Survival, again, it's just a really good... it's just a really good card to be able to keep a lower threat character alive for that little bit longer when we don't have priority. Whims of Chaos, if we're bringing Wanda, we're bringing this. And then lastly, Warpath. Warpath might seem like a strange one, right? We don't have characters that can clap back. Really, it's in there to make sure we are staying on points. They are, you know, a lot of these characters are susceptible to displacement. Wanda is, Magneto is, because they don't have any other ways of being able to move themselves. And especially with Magneto, with only having a short move, it's effectively a stagger. If you throw Magneto short, it is effectively a stagger. So just being able to get himself back onto that point, especially in those situations where you don't have 2 power on him to be able to move back. Now, I did originally have Dracula in this list. I thought he could be fun, powering him up with Magneto. So Warpath was in there for that. So it was a holdover back then. I was like, no, actually, it could work. It could work for us. But, you know, if you wanted to replace that with any other card, then feel free, go ahead. But there we go, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Every time I do one of these videos, it sort of rekindles some old love that I've had for that given affiliation. And it's actually made me play an affiliation that I have never really seriously played. So I've been playing a lot of Avengers at the moment. So in our March event, I have been using... excuse me, I have been using Avengers, so it was nice to use affiliations that I maybe don't use all of the time as well. Have you had any success with Brotherhood lately? Let me know down in the comment section below. They are prime for some updated cards, I think it's fair to say. They could also do with some more tactics cards, but, you know, a couple of the characters could do with a little tweak just to make them that, you know, that little bit better and that little bit more viable, just to bring them back up a little bit. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section below if you've had any success with Brotherhood of Mutants. And if you've got any hints and tips for everybody else, please feel free to put them down below as well. I want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreons and YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really does mean the world. And if you do want to support us, you can do so from as little as £1 a month. Link down in the description below for Patreon, or just click that join button for YouTube. But as always, you don't need to do either of those things. Just simply commenting, liking, subscribing really goes a long way. We are pushing for 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I am going to be upping the amount of content that I'm doing. You'll see this is day 2, and we've got our second video out this week. I am aiming for a video every day this week, not including Saturday and Sunday. So hopefully I can do that. We may not, you probably won't be able to do that every week, but we are going to be aiming for at least 2 videos per week if we can do that. So yeah. Go check out the Discord. We're running our March event at the moment, so you've not quite in time for that one, but you will be in time for our April event as well. Sign-ups will be happening in the next couple of weeks. We also talk about a whole bunch of other things on there as well. Big shout out to Leodis Games, sponsor of the channel, and as always, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.